This is a centre resource for 6 UDIM, Developing International Markets. We live in an ever-changing, but it's always a connected world, so it's important to understand marketing practice from a global perspective. So welcome to 6 UDIM, International Market Development. This unit looks at developing an understanding of global marketing environments, and it considers the challenges presented in international business. It's this knowledge of markets worldwide, of market entry modes and tactics, as well as a strong theoretical underpinning, which of course is appropriate to academic study, and that ability to evaluate strategy, the benefits and risks that will provide a sustainable competitive advantage for each learner. We've divided this centre resource into 7 sections, and together they'll give an outline of how learners can perform to not only pass but excel in a Level 6 unit, namely 6 UDIM. The 6 UDIM syllabus provides the framework for what a learner needs to cover. All academic units are carefully validated around learning outcomes and assessment criteria, which this slide shows for 6 UDIM and which can also be found in the study guide. It's important that each learner has worked through the study guide to be able to have an understanding of the 16 assessment criteria shown in the table. All 6 UDIM unit assessment is based on what is outlined in the syllabus and study guide. ABE has also set out, as can be seen in this table, the behaviours, skills and attitudes that each learner will develop on completing 6 UDIM. Throughout, the emphasis is always on the real world and evaluation of international markets and worldwide business opportunities. Using appropriate analytical frameworks covered in the syllabus and study guide, each learner will be able to apply cultural awareness, cross-cultural sensitivity, diversity to present arguments with respect to global marketing decisions. This knowledge and understanding of the world trading environment, of global strategies, of market entry strategies, of the challenge of globalization provides the basis for all 6 UDIM assessment. This PowerPoint presentation will now go on to consider the strengths and weaknesses of submissions in 6 UDIM so that it can help each learner to produce their best work for the unit. ABE looked at all the exam papers and assignments submitted since 2017, and this slide shows or summarises the common mistakes that were found. The first one, gaps in knowledge and understanding, refers to the fact that one part of a question or a task is not well known or not known at all. For example, where social and cultural factors are asked for, often there is no comment at all on social factors, but there may be comment on cultural factors. Another example is where the task or the question is asking for an understanding of managing performance and risk. The managing and performance part is understood, but the risk is not covered or not understood. Where there is a limited application of theory, many learners may know the theory, for example, Hofstede's cultural dimensions, but they're unable to apply it within what the question or task is asking for. Very often we note that there's a confusion over terms used. Globalization is not the same as internationalization. This is 6 UDIM, so the focus must be on international marketing. An uncertain international focus is where a learner is not showing that they're thinking internationally. So, for example, they would be talking about market or marketing research, but it needs to be about international market or marketing research. A common mistake is that there is weak contextualization. So, as before, the question is not simply trying to find out about what the company chosen does or does not do in the learner's market, but what it does do or could do across borders, that is, internationally. The main issue that we find arising in many of the submissions is that there's insufficient focus on the question or task. Very often only one part of the question or task is covered. That may well be due to a lack of understanding or misinterpretation. Let's now look at how to overcome areas where learners are not performing. So if we go back to the common mistakes which were listed on the previous slide and look at each in turn in terms of how it can be overcome. So the gaps in knowledge and understanding, you need to make sure that you've actually covered all the basic concepts outlined in the syllabus and study guide. When it comes to limited application of theory, it's not enough to simply know the theory and be able to explain it. You must be able to use it and use it in relation to the organisation that you've chosen, use it in relation to international marketing. Confusion over terms used can easily be remedied by having a strong glossary of terms, as has been recommended in the ABE study guide. If you're still confused about the terms used in the task, then refer to the centre where you are studying. Moving on with overcoming areas where learners are not performing, the top two common mistakes shown in this slide, uncertain international focus and weak contextualization, often come together. You need to choose a company that has an international focus, that is working in more than one country, and you need to avoid explaining what local companies do in national markets. The emphasis throughout has to be on 6 UDIM, i.e. on international market development. The last common mistake, which is perhaps the most significant, is that there is often insufficient focus on the question or task. So where, for example, we're asking for critically examine alternative approaches of standardization and customization in relation to international marketing, within the answer recommend and justify the most appropriate approach for your organization. This requires the learner in the answer to critically examine what standardization and customization are, and then to draw out, that's part and parcel of critically examining, how standardization and customization differs within international marketing. The expectation is to use the company chosen and relate standardization and customization to what the company chosen does or could do. There is also a second part of the task whereby a justified recommendation is asked for as to which is most appropriate, standardization or customization, and it has to be appropriate for the company chosen, and this means internationally, not just within one country. Part of that insufficient focus on the question or task is very much about be clear about the command words. This slide summarizes what command words indicate. You need to refer to the ABE guide to command words, which is available in the student portal. The key is to critically analyze, critically appraise, critically assess, critically discuss, with the emphasis being on critically. If you look up a definition of critically, for example, from the Oxford Dictionary, it states that critically means to express in a way that involves an analysis of the merits and faults of a work. ABE is looking for an answer that shows the learner has thought seriously about the issues and considered fully what is good and what is bad about each and every issue. Let's now take a look at what a strong answer would include. We're going to use two perspectives to do this: content, what needs to be included in the answer, and structure, how the answer needs to be organized. So if we start with content, then in strong answers, the focus is always on the command words. critically evaluate, critically assess, critically discuss. They always go beyond describing, explaining and defining. Throughout a strong answer, knowledge of the syllabus and assessment criteria is evident. There's also a clear indication that the learner has worked through the 6 UDIM study guide and they're using that learning well. Strong answer shows a global or international perspective, both in terms of the company and organisation chosen and the context, which goes beyond the country in which the learner is based. In order to do that, it's clear that the learner has a really good understanding about the company they've chosen, about how that company operates with its suppliers and partners. And then finally, there are always relevant examples and visuals used which are linked to the context, to that company or organisation that has been chosen. If we now move on to look at what a strong answer would include in terms of structure, so we're looking at how the answer needs to be organised. Strong answers always use the question or task to guide the answer to make sure that everything that is asked for is covered. Very often, strong answers will actually use sections. They'll break up the question or task into its relevant component parts. So where, for example, the question or task is asking for the suitability of 4 different market entry modes as part of the formulation of an international strategy, then an evaluation of the suitability of each of the 4 different market entry modes could be given initially, and then each could be looked at as part of developing an international strategy for the company chosen. Strong answers avoid repetition, and whether that is repetition in the question or whether that is repetition across questions. No 2 questions or tasks will ever cover the same issues or points, and it's also not necessary to keep making the same point using different words in one question or task. Strong answers use diagrams, frameworks, models, visuals. The emphasis here is on the word use. The diagrams, frameworks, models and visuals have to be relevant, and they have to be sourced or referenced using Harvard referencing. So a good answer would take a diagram or a model, and they would basically show how the company chosen uses the framework and highlight the various aspects of the model or theory as it applies to that company chosen internationally. The bibliographies should summarize the sources and references actually used, and they must be appropriate to 6 UDIM and not the results of a random search on the internet. Good answers don't use that many examples. They avoid it because that tends to bring in a compilation of advantages and disadvantages which are never asked for at level 6. So what's expected at level 6? If you refer back into the ABE study guide, you will find this table, which is the level 6 descriptor. The emphasis here is on understanding different perspectives. It's not just on understanding Hofstede, but how is Hofstede different from other frameworks. Take another look at the command words, which you'll find in the ABE student portal. Those outline the 17 characteristics of a level 6 submission. Remember, the next step is a master's, it's a level 7. So we're expecting that critical component in whatever answer you produce. So let's try and bring everything together, and let's try and help each and every learner do well in 6 UDIM. So how do you gain or achieve marks? The key has to be the first point on this slide. It really is about covering all aspects of the question or task, because it's that which directs everything that's required in the answer. So, for example, using Hofstede's cultural dimensions, critically assess the challenged culture that might arise for your organisation in conducting transnational business. The critically assess part means that you're demonstrating analytical skills, as you're not just describing or explaining the Hofstede model, which is about learning by rote, but you're applying it to the organisation chosen. You're applying it to transnational business. That is synthesis. If examples are used, they support and illustrate your work. And that's further evidence of knowledge and understanding, which is all about learning from the unit's syllabus and study guide. And that also evidences an ability to apply a framework or model. The task in the example given here is asking you to consider the challenge to culture that might arise for your organisation. So you must use the context, your organisation and your organisation conducting transnational business. That evidences an international focus throughout. Finally, the answer must be clear and unambiguous. So be stylistically adept and produce a well-structured answer and task. Producing a strong answer, particularly in assignments, is very much about looking at the task when you've written your assignment. Is everything that is asked for fully covered? Make sure you edit your work before submission. Take out the spelling mistakes. It's so easy to do now with technology. Reread what you've written. See if it can be improved. Make sure that your work is properly referenced, that it's worthy of a level 6 submission. Check the English. ABE has an expectation of a degree of competence in English. And as a final comment, there is not one way to answer any question or complete any task. There is only answering the question, doing what is asked for in the task. If you need any further information, then please email product@abeuk.com. All of us here at ABE are committed to help support your learning journey, and we wish you every success in 6 UDIM and in all your units. Thank you for listening.